What is up, sisters? This is your boy, Beef, and welcome back to the channel. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I hope y'all are having an absolutely fantastic day. Today, we've got the second installment in a series of new build videos where we're going to be creating a unique and thematic modded build for each of the companions in Baldur's Gate 3, both Origin and otherwise. The end goal for this series is to create an 11-person, ultra-modded mega party, and to do that, we have a couple of guidelines to go over. What this means, first and foremost, is that we can only use each equipable item just one time. If a character already has the Cloak of Protection from a previous video, we're going to have to find a new cloak since it's already being worn. Some mods will add items that will help us to offset this challenge and keep our team optimized. But we're going to do our best not to mix in any crossover between builds, if possible. So last time, we built Shadowheart into a Twilight Cleric, and on today's itinerary, we have old One Horn herself, Advocatus Diaboli Karlach Cliffgate. That is a mouthful right there. I don't know why I wrote that. When it comes to choosing a modded class for Karlach, we have a few options. You could go for a slightly more traditional build using a subclass from D&D 5th edition, or we could go all out and pick something wild and new. There are plenty of applicable barbarian options like Battle Rager, Beast, Path of the Giant, but instead I have a class that is completely new to the Forgotten Realms and more so lore adjacent than lore friendly. If you're watching right now, you probably can tell. You know what it is. You've seen the thumbnail. Today we're going to be building Karlach into a demon hunter from World of Warcraft. Oh yeah, do a dance for us, Karlach. This mod was brought to us by Grumpywumpy, and obviously is from the World of Warcraft. I thought this class really kind of vibed with Karlach pretty well because her backstory involves spending the last 10 years fighting on the front lines of the Blood War in Avernus, fighting against who else but Forgotten Realms demons. So she's a demon hunter in a sense. The demon hunter also kind of features a rage-like ability, so it kind of matches up with Barbarian, which is great too. And I also feel like if any of the companions were going to, Karlach would definitely be a World of Warcraft player. She would probably main the Demon Hunter if I was a betting man. So the Demon Hunter is a class that, coming from World of Warcraft, utilizes a completely different set of abilities and resources than D&D classes do. Many of our abilities will cost or generate Fury, a resource that fuels our different abilities and helps us to generate soul fragments. These soul fragments feed into even more powerful abilities that we'll gain as we level up and are going to help us kind of regenerate our abilities and use specialized actions like it says there. But overall, this class can specialize more into the aggressive damage side of things or into aggressive tankiness. And we're going to spec into the tanky subclass because it's such a unique playstyle that isn't really represented by any other class in Baldur's Gate 3, or Dungeons & Dragons for that matter. The main strategy for this subclass is going to revolve around placing ourselves into imminent danger, tanking that damage, mitigating that damage, and then using our various abilities to deal massive damage back that rewards us with lots and lots of self-healing to keep ourselves alive. But now that we've got the basics of this class established, let's get into the leveling progression and build out Karlach's abilities. So, starting at level 1, we're going to scroll down to the bottom where we have Demon Hunter, and this class is going to come right off the bat with a few goodies built in. First off, we have Demon's Bite, a weapon attack that costs a bonus action and generates 1d4 Fury to help us fuel our other abilities. And on the other hand, we have Throw Glaive, which costs 6 Fury and 1 action point, but generates 2 Fury and throws your weapons at your target. Then it can bounce up to 3 times before coming back to you. So this class is already super fun just at level 1 to start off. We're also going to get 2 weapon fighting, which is really great. It's going to just, when you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the attack. Just going to make our second so that we're more effective with using our dual-wielded glaives that we're going with. We're also going to start off with 1 cantrip from the base game. These are mostly support cantrips except for Bone Chill, but I'm going to go with Guidance here just because it's a good spell to have. Could take whatever you want, really. Guidance is my pick. And for our ability scores, Dexterity is going to be our primary stat. Lucky for us, this is going to help with our initiative, our armor class, and it will also be our attack modifier. This class is luckily not very multi-attribute dependent, so we have a good amount of freedom here. I recommend going for 16 dexterity with our, 16 dexterity with our +2 into it. and also 16 constitution because we're going to be a tanky character, so we're going to want to have as much health as possible. I decided to go with 14 strength and 12 wisdom. 14 strength because it's going to increase our jump distance, and jump distance is going to be very important for this character, as well as our wisdom. Wisdom is great because it's going to help us to resist control spells. And charisma intelligence I left at both 8 because we don't need them very much for this character. For your skill proficiencies, we're going to get a bunch of really cool options here. We're going to get 3 proficiencies and 2 expertise. I here have gone with intimidation, perception, and acrobatics. Acrobatics is really great. We're also going to pump that one to an expertise. It's the same with athletics. This is just going to help us with really tanking that damage and pushing out enemies if we decide to push on our turn or something like that. So at level 2, the Demon Hunter is going to get double jump, which, simply put, doubles your jump. It doubles the length of your jump distance, which is part of why we don't dump strength. We end up with a much more jump distance. We're also going to get a new ability called Glide, which is going to allow us to spread your wings, slowing your rate of descent, granting immunity to falling damage, and increasing your jump distance further by an additional 1.5 meters. So this class at level 2 is very mobile. You can tell that it's very kind of jumpy and glidey and flyy. It's very, it's a lot of fun. We're also going to get our first Demon Hunter spell. And for this, I'm going to take, we have a couple different options here. We have Consume Magic, cure a creature from disease, poison, paralysis, or blindness. It costs 2 fury. It's kind of like Lesser Restoration. We have Immolation Aura, engulf yourself in flames, dealing 1 to 4 fire damage. For Havoc, it damages nearby enemies each turn. But for Vengeance, which is what we're going to be taking at level 3, it damages attackers when they hit with a melee attack. So the way that this is going to work is that instead of then just, it's going to give us this fire aura that is then, we, as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, we want our enemies to attack us. We want them to hit us as often as possible. Because the more often they hit us, the more times they're going to take this retaliatory fire damage, in addition to the other retaliatory damage that's coming from our different stuff. Basically, this build is all about we want to be hit. We could also go with Imprison, which is kind of like Hold Person Banishment. Target one creature you can see within 18 meters and imprison it with Fel. Imprisoned creatures will become incapacitated. So it's kind of like that one person immediate shutdown. It costs a bonus action and 1 soul fragment. We also have Spectral Sight, become able to see invisible creatures and possibly reveal them to others. Very similar to see invisibility, basically. And Vengeful Retreat, retreat by releasing energy, hitting nearby enemies for 1 force damage, and gain the ability to blink away from or vault away from danger for that turn. This is also a really cool ability. We'll take it eventually, but for right now, we are going to start by taking Immolation Aura, because this is kind of the core of our build. We want enemies to hit us so that they can get that retaliatory damage back. And it also generates 2 Fury per turn for us, so this is really great. Moving on to level 3, we are going to pick up our subclass, of which there are 2. We have Havoc and Vengeance. Like I've said before, one is high damage and one is more tanky. The tanky one is still going to do a lot of damage. The whole kind of idea of tanky versus damage comes from the DPS, tank, and healer roles for dungeons and raids in World of Warcraft, where your subclass determines what roles you can perform in different multiplayer lobbies. We're going to go with the Vengeance Demon Hunter subclass, because I think this one actually pairs really nicely with Karlach and her story, as well as synergizing really well with some other mechanics. You can see here, if you click on Vengeance, a Vengeance Demon Hunter is an aggressive, fast-paced tank that rips souls from the enemy to use for their own benefit. They embrace the demon within to incinerate enemies and protect their allies on the front line. So, if you think about it, because Karlach has her Infernal Engine heart, she kind of has demon within, and she spent 10 years fighting on the front lines of the blood war, and she was doing a lot of this aggressive, fast-paced tanking, ripping the souls from enemies and using them to her own benefit, popping assault coins in the engine. I think it really kind of, in a weird way, kind of matches up. It's obviously like your deity is Illidan Stormrage, so it's not like that lore friendly in any way, but I think it really works. Regardless, this subclass has the tank options, and with it we are going to get Mastery Fel Blood, which strengthens your blood, gaining resistance to slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning damage. That's really awesome, because now we get that ability that barbarians get on their rage, but we just always have it. We're also going to get Infernal Armor, which is going to buff our Immolation Aura, which now grants us resistance to magical damage. Immolation Aura has the chance to torment enemies, forcing them to attack the Demon Hunter. So this is just going to mean we're going to pop this at the beginning of combat so that we have our Fire Aura. Enemies are going to, then we're going to gain resistance to all that damage. Enemies are going to run up to us, they're going to try to attack us, they're going to take a bunch of damage back, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We also get different actions here, like Fell Blade. Charge forward and attack the first enemy in your way, dealing 0, it says 0 piercing damage because that's just how it's reading out. Burning them with 2 fire damage and goad them into attacking you. So this one is kind of a charge attack. Whereas Demon Spikes starts with Foul Power, healing yourself with 20% of the damage taken, is a really great heal ability that you can use on your bonus action that costs 4 Fury. So if you ever need some extra healing, just go ahead and pop this for it. When we take a new spell at this level, Imprison is probably going to be our best pick here because it's going to be a good crowd control option that will allow us to take an enemy that we decide is just too much of a threat and cut them out and say, this is too much to deal with right now, just let's put them away and deal with it later. It's just like banishment, but even better. We're also going to pick our first demonic mastery, and we have a few options to look at here. My favorite personally is Flamebound because it's going to help us regenerate and fuel some more soul fragments to fuel our abilities. You can see here, learn Flamebound, a spell which causes your immolation aura to regenerate some soul fragments. So it's going to further boost our immolation aura. There's also some options here like Illidari Knowledge. You gain a 30% chance to reduce fire, cold, thunder, lightning, psychic, and force damage taken by half. We're already resistant to it, so fine there. Shattered Restoration is going to give us a little bit more healing. Fellfire Haste, Fell Rush, and Infernal Strike increases your movement speed by 3 meters for 2 turns and does not provoke opportunity attacks. This one's okay. We don't really need it that much. Chaos Brand, learn to use Chaos Brand. Chaos Brand is basically just brands enemies in the target area, making them vulnerable to magic damage for 3 turns. This is also a really great ability because if you're making enemies vulnerable to magic damage, imagine that sitting behind you, you have a sorcerer who's going to take a fireball, and now every enemy that you just made vulnerable to magic damage is now going to take crazy damage from it. This one's a really great one. We're going to take that eventually, but not yet, because at these early levels, magic isn't all that yet. There's also Aura of Pain. The number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. This effect can stack. We're going to be able to get this a bunch of different times, so we're not going to take it now, but we're going to go with Flamebound because we're going to boost that immolation aura even further. We're also going to get our Vengeance specialization. And here I strongly recommend getting Untethered Fury, which will give us 1d4 Fury at the start of every turn. More Fury means more powerful attacks, and more powerful attacks means more soul fragments, means more healing, means more enemies that you can kill and more getting through it. There's also Riposte here, which is a reaction that allows us to deal chaos damage at the expense of our own health on a reaction. There's also Retaliation here. While Demon Spikes is active, melee attacks against you cause the attacker to take half of the damage dealt. This would be a really good one if you wanted to go into more of the retaliatory damage here, obviously. And there's Army Unto Oneself. Fell Blade grants a 50% damage reduction for 2 turns after successfully hitting an enemy. This one's really great because it allows us to just kind of pinball around the battlefield. Every time we kill an enemy, we can rush to the next one and then get even more 50%, even more damage reduction, and they all kind of stack onto each other, so it's really insane. But we're going to go with Untethered Fury because at this level, we really want to be able to generate more Fury as often as possible. At level 4, we get Pursuit, which is going to increase our movement speed by 3 meters, which is really awesome. Our crit chance is also going to go up by another 1 point. So you see here, we didn't take that one as a like a little ability earlier because we were about to get this at level 4. So we get that. We also get Soul Cleave, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a cleave. Viciously strike enemies in front of you for 150% of attack power. You heal yourself for 40% of the damage dealt. This one is going to be just an AoE that also heals you. It's going to cost 3 Fury and 2 Soul Fragments. We're also going to get Torment, which is going to be a big AoE kind of taunt that encourages all the enemies in your area to attack you. And we're also going to get Soul Barrier, which is kind of like this class's version of Shield. On a reaction, use your Soul Fragments, immune to Magic Missile. Armor class is increased by 5, basically the Shield spell. And you're also immune to Magic Missile, so it's kind of even better than Shield. For our cantrip, we are going to take pretty much whatever you want here. I'm going to go with Light because it's really helpful in Act 2. For our Vengeance spell, we are going to get access to a new one called Fell Devastation. This is a really cool one that we're going to want to grab. It does unleash the Fell within you, damaging enemies directly in front of you, 6 to 9 fire damage, 1d4 plus 5. Restores up to 50% hit points of the damage dealt. This is really cool because it basically is just going to do like a lightning bolt, but a big fire, so you can... It's really cool. And it costs 6 Fury and 2 Soul Fragments. We're going to grab that because we love doing fire damage. This build is all about the fire damage. And for our feat, we are going to start by taking an ability score improvement. You could also take the alert feat. If you're playing on honor mode, I definitely recommend that, unless you are playing our full mega party build, which has Twilight Cleric Shadowheart. Then you already have the +3 bonus to your initiative. which means you don't necessarily need alert that badly. So because I'm doing that, I'm going to take the ASI and add 2 points to dexterity. Dexterity is our, like I said, it's our main stat, so we want to put as many points into that as possible. At level 5, we're going to get a bunch of new abilities. First off, we get extra attack, which is really awesome. Soul Rending, gain an extra action attack. The way that this works with this class is instead of just taking your action and giving you 2 attacks per that action, it's going to give you an extra action. So it looks like you have haste. Eventually, it'll look like you have 3 actions. But basically what that means is it's just going to allow us to... It serves the same function. We're going to get Thick Skin, which is going to give you, at the first turn of each combat, Spell Energy thickens your skin to demonic proportions, granting Thick Skin. The buff doesn't say here, and I can't pull it up, but what it's going to do is going to give you temporary hit points at the beginning of each turn equal to Constitution modifier plus your Demon Hunter level, so you're going to start every turn with a bunch of temporary hit points, which is really awesome. We're also going to get a new attack ability. This time it's called Shear, which is a single target damage that does a ton of self-heal. You can see here, shear an enemy with bow weapons, shattering their soul and healing you for 60 to 70% of the damage dealt. So you can do just this big single target hit that's going to heal you for a lot of damage. We're also going to get Fiery Brand, which is kind of like a shorter duration but stronger Hunter's Mark. You can see here, brand an enemy with a demonic symbol, instantly dealing 1 to 4 fire damage, causing the enemy to be disadvantaged all abilities for 2 turns. So this is just like a huge debuff that is going to make doing all of your attacks that much stronger. Spirit Bomb, which shatters the souls of nearby enemies, damaging them for 3 to 12 fire damage and absorbing their soul, healing you for 30% of the damage done. So this one is kind of like run into the middle, do a big AoE around you, and do a bunch of fire damage and suck back the health. You can see here the theme that we're kind of building is putting yourself into the thick of it, so you can do tons of fire damage and then heal yourself. And to complement that playstyle, we're going to take Vengeful Retreat for our vengeance spells, because we're going to be getting right up into it. So in case shit goes south, we're going to want to have a quick departure, and Vengeful Retreat is the option for that. Retreat by releasing energy, hitting nearby enemies for 1 force damage, and gaining the ability to blink to vault away from danger that turn. You're also going to get a cantrip at this level. You can really just take whatever you want. Again, I'm going to go for Bone Chill because woohoo. At level 6, we're going to get the ability which pretty much makes our entire class worth it. Metamorphosis Vengeance gives us our subclass's version of our demonic transformation. In this form, we gain a bunch of temporary HP, heal every turn, and Shear does extra healing. Entering this form costs 4 soul fragments and an action, and generates 10 fury to spend on abilities. Additionally, we're going to get Sigil of Flames, which is a huge ability. It's kind of like we're going to put down sort of like Glyph of Warding, but with fire damage, and it works the same way, generates 2 fury per hit. So you can plop this down and then generate a bunch of fury while dealing a ton of fire damage to your enemies. So for our demonic mastery, a few new options have opened up for us. Flames of Fury here will boost our Sigil of Flames damage, while Charred Warblades will add 2 fire damage to our weapon attacks, and Aura of Pain, like I said before, will add that 1. Master of the Glaive will improve our Throw Glaive ability, which has a chance to apply slow to enemies hit for 2 turns. It'll be really cool, especially since we're ricocheting it, bouncing it around to 3 people, but that is okay because what we are going to take here is Charred Warblades, because it's going to imbue your weapons with Fell Fire, dealing an additional 2 fire damage. It's just going to add 2 fire damage to each of our weapon attacks, and because we're going to be doing so many weapon attacks, it's going to really add up, and it's also going to help trigger a specific item that we're going to wear. We're also going to pick our Vengeance specialization, and this time we have a couple extra options. We are going to be taking Ascending Flame. Sigil of Flame has a chance to deal another set of fire damage per enemy hit. So we're going to be doing that Sigil of Flame a lot, because that is going to be our kind of our main way of dealing a bunch of fire damage to a big AoE crowd, and then generating a bunch of fury so that we can then do more attacks. And this one is going to has a chance to deal another set of fire damage per enemy hit. So if there's another tick of damage. At level 7, we get Disrupt, which is our version of Counterspell, which is such a great ability to have. We're also going to get Shattered Souls. Vengeance, killing an enemy sometimes releases a soul fragment that heals you for 30 to 40% of maximum health. So occasionally, you'll just get a huge healing boost for just killing an enemy. Really awesome. We're also going to get Infernal Strike. This is a really fun ability. Leap through the air toward a targeted location, dealing weapon damage, bludgeoning damage, and 1 to 4 fire damage. Affected enemies must make a charisma saving throw or be tormented. forcing them to attack you for 2 turns, and it also generates 2 fury per hit. So this is a really great ability to use to initiate combat. This is what they do a lot of times in World of Warcraft when you're initiating combat with an enemy. Grabbing aggro is you use this Infernal Strike to jump onto the enemy and grab them in. So this is a really cool ability that obviously channels into that sort of vibe. We're also going to get, it says cantrip here called Chaos Nova. This is not a cantrip. Chaos Nova unleash an eruption of fell energy dealing chaos damage, and enemies must succeed a dexterity saving throw or be stunned. This is really powerful. It does a lot of damage. It costs 5 fury and 3 soul fragments. This is a really good ability, and it is a huge AoE that it's just going to do a ton of damage in your area. We're also going to get a new Vengeance spell, and this time we get access to 3 cool new options. But for us, Sigil of Misery is the one that I'm going to pick. Sigil of Chains does 7 to 10, 1d4 plus 6 force damage. Place a demonic sigil at the target location, damaging enemies for 7 to 10 force damage and pulling in nearby objects and creatures. This one's really cool because we can just it's like a black hole ability. There's also Sigil of Misery. Place a demonic sigil at the target location, causing enemies in the vicinity to be frightened for a turn and confusing them for 3 turns. It's kind of similar vibes, but it's different crowd control abilities. And then Sigil of Silence. Place a demonic sigil at the target location, silencing enemies in the vicinities. It's just like placing down a silence. We're actually going to go with Sigil of Chains because this one is really great for kind of drawing enemies in together and pulling them in. At level 8, we are going to get a huge boost to our Metamorphosis, which now reduces damage by an additional 50%. So we're not taking like any damage whatsoever. It's really great. We're also going to get access to a new skill that we can make expertise in. I'm going to choose Perception just because it's a really great one to have a plus 11 in. For our new Vengeance spell, I am going to take the Sigil of Misery because that one is a really great one, and I wanted to grab it last time, but I ended up grabbing the Sigil of Chains instead because I just felt like grabbing it. And for our feat at level 8, we are going to be taking Savage Attacker. Savage Attacker is a really great ability because when making weapon melee attacks, roll your damage dice twice and use the highest result. So we're going to be doing a lot of damage with melee attacks, and we're going to want to be able to, this will just give us a huge boost to our damage and re-roll our low rolls. So at level 9, we're going to get a new Demonic Mastery, and I am going to take Shattered Restoration because it's going to help us regenerate health when we're in the thick of it. Beginning of each turn, you have a chance to shatter the souls of enemies within 10 meters, healing you for 2 hit points and Constitution modifier. Basically, this is just going to mean we're going to be in combat, and every turn we're going to do this nice little, in a radius, we're going to kind of leech health from our enemies, and it's just going to help us get our turn started. We are also going to get access to a new specialization, and this time we have a couple extra options, but we are going to go with Army Unto Oneself. Fellblade grants a 50% damage reduction for 2 turns after successfully hitting an enemy. I think I talked about this one earlier, but like I said, it's just going to allow us to kind of, after we kill an enemy, we can then rush over to a new enemy and then give ourselves even more damage mitigation once we're there. We also have abilities here like Roaring Fire. Fell Devastation heals you for 30% of your missing health, or Ruinous Bulwark. Fell Devastation heals an additional 2d6, or Stoke the Flames. Fell Devastation deals an additional 2d6, 2 to 12 force damage. This one kind of scales also. Additionally, these each all scale. They'll go up as you continue to level up, but I really like Army Unto Oneself here. Moving on to level 10, we are going to get a really cool ability called Last Resort, which makes it so that rather than dying, we turn into our transformation for 3 turns and gain 30% of our health back. This is like Death Ward on steroids. We're also going to get Soul Carver, which is just an even more powerful fire attack. It does even more kind of melee damage, and also does even more heals. But it's also very expensive to cast. It costs 5 Fury and 5 Soul Fragments. But obviously it's worth it because you're immediately healing yourself for 80% of the damage dealt. And burning targets. So if you are low on health, which you probably won't be, but if you are, you can use this to give yourself a huge chunk of your health back. We're also going to get a new spell, and this time we are going to be taking a new one called the Hunt. Charge to your target, striking enemies in your path for 300% of your main weapon's attack power as chaos damage. This pursuit invigorates your soul, healing you for 10% of the damage dealt. This one doesn't do a ton of heals, but it does do a lot of damage. So even though you're doing not a huge percentage of healing, it's still based off of 300% damage, so it's still a good amount of healing. But regardless, it's a huge nuke. It's a huge nuke. I mean, 300% weapon damage is insane, especially if your weapon damage is like 20. That's a big hit. So that's what we're going to go with. We're going to pick the Hunt.
At level 11, we're mostly just going to get an HP increase and additional spell. At this point, you can pick pretty much whatever you want. You can go for Sigil of Silence. You could pick Darkness, creates a Shroud of Darkness around you, granting friendly targets within it avoidance to all damage for 2 turns. We're not going to really need this one that much because we're going to be taunting a lot of enemies. We're instead going to take Consume Magic, which we've had access to for a long time, but it's nice to have, and there's nothing else here that's really making me want to grab it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this just for the ability of it. And finally, at level 12, we are going to be getting a new Demonic Mastery and also our extra attack, extra action. So we have our 3rd action now. We're also going to get a new specialization and a feat. This is a big level for us, and it's the last one we get. So for our Demonic Mastery, we are finally going to be taking Chaos Brand. Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to brand enemies in a target area, making them vulnerable to magic damage for 3 turns. So we're going to be able to use this just on a big AoE area to then kind of set up. We're going to be alley-ooping and setting up a huge dunk from our spellcasters in the back who are doing magic damage. For our Vengeance specialization, we are going to be taking Retaliation. Like I mentioned earlier, while Demon Spikes is active, melee attacks against you cause the attacker to take half of the damage dealt. On hit, succeeding a dexterity saving throw deals retaliation damage. So the weird thing is, we're not going to be taking that much damage very often because we're going to be mitigating a lot of it. But it's nice to have this to be able to punch back when they do hit us. For our feat, we are going to be taking an ability score improvement to bring us up to an even 20, because that is just going to help us do even more damage and have a higher hit chance and everything like that. And that should just about do it for leveling this character up. The mod enables you to go up to 20 if you have that mod enabled, but as we'll see, this character is plenty powerful just at level 12, and the main progression stops at level 12 too, so there's that. But now that we're done leveling, let's hop on over and talk about what gear this build is going to use. So when it comes to equipment for this character, we are going to be specializing pretty heavily into fire damage and burning. We are going to be starting with the Hat of Fire Acuity. Whenever you deal fire damage, you gain Arcane Acuity for 2 turns. So our weapon attacks, because we have that ability that adds fire damage to every single weapon attack, too, we're going to be doing fire damage a lot, and we're going to be gaining that Arcane Acuity a lot. So every time that we do those weapon attacks, it's going to be making our spells like Sigil of Flames even stronger. We're also going to be using the Cindermoth Cloak. This is going to be our sort of main source of applying the burning effect. Creature that damages the wearer within 2 meters receives burning. So because this build is all about inciting our enemies to attack us, we're going to be inflicting that burning a lot whenever an enemy in melee range attacks us. When we inflict that burning, whenever you burn an enemy with the Cinder Shoes, you gain 2 turns of heat. So we're also going to be burning ourselves in a weird way. What the heat is going to enable us to do, in addition to the Thermal Arcanic Gloves, whenever you deal that fire damage, the same with the Hat of Fire Acuity, we are going to gain 2 turns of heat. So then we're going to, every time that we then get hit, we're going to gain heat, and every time that we hit, we're going to gain heat. And we're going to use that heat to deal more fire damage. Where is it? The passive in here. See, I have so many passives that it's a lot hard to find. Although it's not active because I don't have any heat, but it's going to give us heat convergence, which allows us to then just kind of do a bigger fire attack that is buffed out the wazoo. We're also going to be using the Bone Spike Garb, which is normally for barbarians, and you can see here it has Slabjaw Determination. You gain 15 temporary hit points whenever you rage. This character doesn't rage, so we're not really using that. But the thing that we get out of it is reduce all incoming damage by 2. When the wearer is struck by a melee attack, the attacker takes 6 piercing damage. That's freaking sweet. It means that we're doing a ton of retaliatory damage every time that we get hit, and we're encouraging these hits. We don't even have to hit enemies in order for them to take damage from us. All we have to do is stand there and look menacing, and then when we do hit them, it's just for fun because we want to, and because it does a lot of damage. But additionally, we are going to be using the Amulet of Greater Health. When you're in the earlier parts of the game, you could use the Periaptive Wound Closure, and I definitely recommend this. You might even want to use this over the Amulet of Greater Health, because what this does is, when downed, automatically stabilize at the start of the turn, and whenever you are healed, you restore the maximum number of possible hit points. This character is doing a lot of self-heals a lot of the time and all the time. So if you're maximizing that number of hit points that you're regaining, you're going to be gaining a lot of hit points and staying alive. That said, once you get the Amulet of Greater Health, it's really awesome to be able to bring yourself up to almost 160 health. And then on top of that, you get like 30 points of temporary hit points every turn. So you're really not going to have a ton of health points there. We're also going to be using the Ring of Self-Immolation, because this ring enables us to use self-immolation, which set yourself on fire to gain heat. As a bonus action, you can use it once per short rest, and it gives you heat for 2 turns just to help get that heat started. If you don't want to use this, you could use another ring, like the Killer Sweetheart or anything else like that. I have the Ring of Free Action here as my second ring, because since we are wearing the Cinder Shoes, we don't really have a boots that is going to give us that sort of the same effect as you ignored the effects of difficult terrain and cannot be paralyzed or restrained. But this ring is going to help compensate for that like sort of issue there. So the Demon Hunter mod itself has glaives that are placed around the map, and you can use those if you want to, by all means. But for my purposes, I am going to be using these glaives that are imported from a separate mod called the Glaives of Azzinoth. And it's going to give us these 2 legendary progressive weapons. That means that they start at a lower level and they get stronger as you level up. You can see here, unlock the following spells. 1 Soul Cleave, level 3, Fell Rush, level 5, Chaos Nova, level 6, First Blood, Flurry of Strikes, and Blade Dance. So these are some really cool abilities that we actually already have, for the most part, in here. We can use these if we want them. But these ones, well, you can see these ones do a ton of damage, and they only cost bonus action. These ones are like, kind of if you just want to have a ton of fun. These ones are the ones that are actually like part of our class. This ones are just from the weapon. But regardless, these ones have a ton of different... They're not super overpowered in their damage, but they have a bunch of cool riders. Like you can see here, if we look at the main hand weapon, 1d4 plus 1 slashing, which ignores resistance, plus 3 slashing, plus 1 fire, plus 2d4 fire, plus 1 cold, plus 1d force conditional. That 1d force conditional comes from Fiery Brand, deals an additional 1 to force fire damage to targets burned by Sigil of Flame. You just hit with this weapon will be engulfed in fell fires. So you get hit by the weapon, and then you get caught on fire, fell fires. There's a lot of fire happening here. Additionally, at level 6, reduce the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking by 1. This class is crazy. If you take all those critical hit abilities, you can make your critical hit like 13 or something. It's insane. Whereas the offhand version of the weapon for your second hand has 1d4 plus 1 slashing damage, ignore resistance, plus 3 slashing, plus 1 thunder damage, plus 1 necrotic, plus 2d4 fire, plus 1d4 psychic. And that psychic damage comes from Fiery Brand. Deals an additional 1 to 4 psychic damage to targets burned by Sigil of Flame. Creatures hit with this weapon will be engulfed in Holy Flame starting at level 7. So once you get to level 7, you get an additional Sigil of Flame, or that is going to give you psychic damage on top of your force damage. This offhand one is also going to give you fast hands, gain additional bonus action at level 4. So this is just getting more and more nasty and more overpowered as it goes. It's also going to get True Strike Riposte. When a creature misses you with a melee attack, you may retaliate and gain True Strike. So this is insane. We don't even need retaliatory things anymore because now we have True Strike Riposte. It just means we get advantage on those attacks. And as you can see here, they also, when you hit level 11, which our character is, spells and weapon actions will no longer have cooldowns, which is really freaking awesome. So obviously this character is super powerful. It says here 2 to 5, but we're going to find out soon that is not the case. All right. So we're here with my favorite guards outside of Worm's Rock. We're going to enter turn-based mode. And we're going to start by using Flamebound. This one won't cost an action, but it'll just give us our buff. It's our long rest buff. It's going to... You can see here it has a 30% chance to shatter the souls of your enemies, giving you 1 soul fragment up to 4 souls. So it's just going to make our Immolation Aura even stronger. We're then going to find our Immolation Aura, which at level 12 has scaled up to 3d6 fire damage, 3 to 18. Generates 2 fury each turn. So we're going to spend our first action here, activating our buff. So that means that we can't do an attack on that action. We can't do 3 attacks this turn. But that's okay, because I don't really care. We're then going to use our Metamorphosis Vengeance. Turn into our another form. Now we have plus 159, over 159 health. So we have a full health bar of temporary hit points, in addition to our aura. We passively heal at the beginning of each turn for 3d4 damage, and Sheer heals for 40% additionally. And now we are also going to use our last action to do a big attack. I don't want to do sheer yet, but we're going to start with Sigil of Flames because that is going to do a bunch of fire damage. Oh, wait. No, it's not. Because they're not enemies yet. Sorry. We're just laying a trap for them. Let's actually end our turn. Don't need these guys. They're way over here.
Bad behavior caught this guard's eye. What do you have to say?
What do I have to say? Oh my god, I wasn't expecting that. Okay, Soul Barrier. I wasn't expecting 4 of them to die. Holy hell. 65, 68, 68, 64. I'm sorry. Okay, so now we're gonna come over here and do some melee damage. We're not gonna actually, let's start by throwing our glaive just one time. It's gonna cost 6 fury. I just want to show you what it looks like. That's cool. And they each do different damage. Now we are going to come on over here, and I'm not even gonna attack them. I'm gonna let them be tormented, and I'm gonna let them just kind of attack us. He died. I gained 62 health from absorbing his soul. Let's skip our turn again because I want him to attack me. Oh, I lost my aura. I didn't even notice. That's my bad. Oh, it might be. I think it's yeah, my fault. To reactivate the aura, and then end my turn. What you gonna do, bud? He seems to be dodging our retaliatory damage because he's not doing melee attacks. So let's fix that problem by doing that. And then we're going to follow it up with let's do a Soul Carver. Oh my god, that's a oh my, wow. Okay, so the crit, obviously, that's insane. That's bananas. So yeah, I came out of this encounter basically unscathed. To be fair, we are level 12. And we're using these modded weapons that are really powerful, but that's okay, because this build is meant to be insane. That pretty much does it for this Demon Hunter build guide for Karlach. What do you think of this one? It's definitely a little bit overpowered, but it's just so much fun, I really can't help myself. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you so much, and I will see y'all in the next one.